I don't believe in God. I know God.
I love me some Jesus.
You're doing too much.
That's crazy. That's on the next episode.
It's the moon reading.
I rock with you, Yaya.
It's all love.
They better listen to this advice. We good.
You crazy girl.
This is what this show is about, all right? We
Put
keep
the
it real.
and real talk, the God in God talk.
And that's a wrap.
Thank you for coming out to a live recording of our podcast, Real Talk on Godtalk.
So today's Friday, September 13th, and you are listening or watching Real Talk on Godtalk, a podcast for people who skip church for brunch on Sundays.
Yes, we are recording live, y'all. This is our very first live recording at the Congressional Black Caucus's 2019 Annual Legislative Conference.
Exactly. For those of you who don't know, Real Talk on Godtalk is a podcast community, and we explore spirituality and our relationships with God, but in ways that go beyond the restrictive and sometimes old-fashioned conversations of the church and academic-style theology.
Yes, so we are a podcast for people who skip church for brunch on Sundays. Low-key, this is the perfect weekend for that. I've been skimming Eventbrite, and y'all have so many brunches happening.
Yes, we in there.
Y'all are our people.
Yep. And with Real Talk on God Talk, we basically bring the church to the streets and vice versa. No question and no topic is off limits. Politics, sex, pop culture. If y'all talking about it, we talking about it too.
Yeah. We started Real Talk on God Talk to really cut through the BS. When it comes to religion and theology, there were too many people faking and fronting. So many of us are tired of presenting as if we're perfect one day a week and then spending the other 6 days a week floundering through, confused, treating our regular lives as if our spiritual lives don't matter.
Yeah. So let's introduce ourselves. Yeah, girl.
Okay, so to give you all a little background about the Real Talk on God Talk community, Real Talk on God Talk is a space where there's no separation between the secular and the sacred. God is everywhere and in everything. So we were just like, let's talk about it. So I'm Yaya. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a Master of Divinity in Psychology and Religion from Union Theological Seminary. I'm a community organizer by day, hot wife by night, regular, degular, schmegula, Brooklyn girl who's full of magic.
And I'm Truth, pronouns she, her, hers. I have a Master's of Divinity in Theology and the Arts. I'm an audio editor, and I rep Brooklyn wherever I go.
Yes, so you know a little bit about us. We want to get into the show. This is season 2, episode 1, Disorganized Religion, live from the CBC Foundation's annual legislative conference. Make sure that you guys use the hashtags, Real Talk on God Talk, and hashtag CBCF to keep the conversation going. So let's get a rundown of what to expect for today's episode. In this episode, we'll be talking disorganized religion, spiritual development for the church, unchurched, and everyone in between. We're asking the real talk question of the week. Okay, so you're spiritual but not religious. What does that really mean? What does it mean to be spiritual but not religious, and how can we engage spiritually when the church may no longer be our center of focus?
Yeah, so it's not really a secret that when it comes to millennials and Gen Z, the traditional church is really struggling. And more Americans aged between 18 to 35 are identifying as spiritual but not religious. And so what does that actually mean? And we'll also be taking you through the moon reading with Gaia, focusing on how to ride the wave of change by aligning your mind, body, and spirit in time for September 23rd's autumn equinox.
Yes. Okay, so
let's get into it.
Let's do it. Let's get right into it. So, per usual, it's story time. Last our listeners heard from us, we were recent seminary graduates, broke, jobless, confused, and so we took some time off to pray, to get our lives together, and that has been good good time off for us. But y'all know us. We can't stay away from the Real Talk on God Talk community, so we're still listening to our listeners, engaging. And I got a message from a listener who said she loves the show. She listens to us religiously, no pun intended. But instead of skipping church for brunch on Sundays, she actually on Sundays listens to Real Talk on God Talk, puts on some gospel, and cleans the house. And so she kind of like listens to Real Talk on God Talk as a stand-in for church.
Ooh.
Right. And
That's
I,
deep.
right.
That's deep.
I was flattered. That's a major compliment. But Real Talk is a lot of things. Church, I don't know.
I don't know.
Right. So, long story short, I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I took it to my friends, like everything else in my life. And one friend said something that really kept rolling around in my mind. She's like, for people who gave up on the church but are still seeking spiritually, Real Talk is something, and something spiritually is better than nothing. And she basically said, I don't need my spirituality to be labeled religion, and I don't need my spiritual community to be labeled church.
Ooh. Okay.
Right. And
She went in.
Right.
She's been doing some unpacking.
Right. And so she's been doing the work unpacking. So I thought, let's take it to the Real Talk community. Let's take it to truth and see. What do you think about that? So, what do you think? What's your relationship with organized religion? Does labels matter?
So my relationship with organized religions is I don't like it.
Okay, straight up like that.
Straight up like that. I don't like it. So for many reasons, I'd rather label myself as like a follower of Jesus than as a Christian.
Okay.
Because of like the ugly history of Christianity and the violence of it, and particularly identifying as a Latina woman and also as a woman who's a lesbian. The church itself has done so much damage to my community, by like mass killings, separating families, and so many homeless LGBTQ underage kids who then are, picked up in sex trafficking rings, and then for the church to turn around and say, "Oh, but you're going to hell? Like really? For real?" So I do not have a good relationship with an organized religion or an institution. But I agree with the teachings of Jesus. Love God, love your neighbor. Those are like two principles that I feel I can apply every day, and that makes sense for me. And so, do labels matter? I don't know. I think it depends. I'm not gonna jump somebody, down somebody's throat if they're like, "Oh, but you a Christian?"
Right. You're like, okay, I'm
like,
Christian.
yeah, okay, cool. But when I'm asked to self-identify, I say I'm a follower of Jesus. That's different for me. What about you?
So I would say that I am spiritual. I am curious. I pray, I meditate, I participate in ritual. But when it comes to organized religion, I feel like my personal, Real Talk, I grew up in the Christian faith. I grew up in the Christian tradition. That is the heritage of my people, my ancestors, my mom, my grandma.
Christianese.
Right. I speak Christianese. The praises go up, the blessings come down, the whole nine yards.
Good all the time.
Right. God's good all the time. I don't think I'll ever give that up.
Yeah.
Like that's a part of me and how I was raised, and also ethically.
Yeah.
Like as you said, the teachings of Jesus, the parables of Jesus are so powerful.
Yeah.
My issue is what have people taken those teachings and done, and how does the institution try to control how I think? And so I feel like personally my consciousness has gone beyond what a lot of churches have to offer. Not every single church. Like I've been to many churches that are affirming that, I can really get behind, but when it comes to Shakira, Yaya, do you want to call yourself a Christian?
Right.
At this point in my life, not really.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think many people nowadays identify themselves as spiritual, but not religious, but there's been a few studies that have been done. In the 2015 Pew Research poll, they asked two questions. The first one was, do you consider yourself religious? And the second one was, do you consider yourself spiritual? And for the first time, a quarter of U.S. adults say they're spiritual but not religious. So that's like 1 in 4.
Wow, so out of every 4 people here, one
is saying, And then furthermore, what's interesting about that study is that it had nothing to do with gender or race or politics or education, it just had to do with age. Millennials and the Gen Z generations were the one who answered that way. So that's pretty interesting.
Right.
You know?
So, truth have me doing all my research. We were going deep down the rabbit hole.
All the way down.
And so I also found a 2016 Harvard Divinity School study. So they did a report called How We Gather, and they found something very interesting. What they said was that despite young people 18 to 30 leaving organized religion, they're still avidly seeking. And so what they used was a term that young people were seeking non-traditional spaces to fulfill the functions that the church once did. And so it's like, you once went to your pastor for pastoral care. Where are you going to for that now? You once went to the church for a sense of community, for like that backbone. Where are young people going now? And so I guess to kind of like wrap up a clear statement of like what's going on. So basically, more and more people are turning towards the blanket term of spirituality, right? And so for y'all that can't see me, spirituality got the air quotes. I know my grandma, if I tell her, oh, I'm just spiritual, she's like, so you mean you believe in Jesus? Like,
He's a Christian, right?
Right. Yes. And so more and more people are turning towards the blanket term spirituality as an alternative to organized religion, right? But with the freedom that comes from being untied from the formal church is also a feeling of untetheredness. Young people are reporting kind of still feeling lost, feeling confused, not knowing how to orient themselves to this new spirituality, right? And so where churches, mosques, synagogues, temples used to tell us how to be spiritual, how to become spiritually mature, how to develop, now we're asking ourselves, where are we going?
Where are we going? Right.
So I thought that we would talk about some of the places that we turn to. What do we do?
All right. So I think that was a lot.
Okay. that was a lot.
That was a lot. So I think something that would help is like, let's get a working definition of spiritual but not religious, because are we talking about, what are we talking about when we say spiritual, and what are we talking about when we say religious?
Right.
Because sometimes people think that they're not interchangeable, or that one has nothing to do with the other, but that's actually the opposite.
Right. I think a lot of people, when they hear spiritual as like that blanket term, they think of like new agey self-help books, I can do it, and just using the word spirit to encompass anything that's mental, anything that's not physical.
Right.
I take a kind of a different stance on that, where I would say spirituality for me is engaging with the idea that everything is connected. The things we can see, the things we can't see, and for me, I use the term God, I use the term divine, that guiding force makes itself aware to me through the spirit.
Okay.
And so that's kind of like
that makes sense. It's like where it's more like spirituality, like religion is an expression of spirituality, but it's only like one expression of it.
Yes, and so like religion tells you, how do I access this divine spirit? How do I access, how do I become in closer communion with God, Jesus, whoever your person is.
Right.
But spirituality doesn't necessarily need a medium or conduit.
Gotcha.
At least how I
all right, so then how do, in this new age then, how do we develop spirituality without religion?
Now that I think that's the question that we're sending everyone home with right now. I don't think that's we can answer that here, but I think it starts with awareness. As like we live in a world that likes to pretend like everything is matter, like everything is physical. Only what can be proven matters. Only if it's not making me money or paying my bills, it doesn't matter.
Only what I can touch.
Right. Only what I can touch matters.
Right.
I think as people who consider ourselves spiritual. If we go forth into our daily interactions just with the awareness that what I'm doing affects other people, other things, what I'm doing, God knows and sees, like really, not in just like, oh, I'm scared to go to hell type of thing, but in what I do has an effect. I think that is how you can develop and kind of get closer.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. It's kind of like my freedom is tied to how like liberated you are, right? And that's how I should see it. Right, so my freedom is also attached to, are the hungry being fed? Right. So I think that.
So let me ask you a question, right? So according to my grandma, the answer to all of life's problems are in the Bible. And you know, I'm not gonna say she's wrong. Honestly.
You better not.
Right. First, I'm gonna not say she's wrong, but two, I genuinely don't think she's wrong. I think for me, sacred texts like the Bible are a very important anchor into spirituality.
Yeah.
And so my question for you is, as someone who calls yourself a follower of Jesus and not necessarily a Christian, what's your relationship with the Bible and sacred texts?
Yeah.
And not just the Bible. When we say sacred texts, we're referring to the Quran. We're referring to the Tao. We're referring to. I was very blessed to have Dr. James Cone be my advisor, and when I took a class with him on Baldwin, he looks at Baldwin's work as sacred text. I look at Audre Lorde's work as sacred text. So I'm not just talking about.
So I think for me, even though I call myself like a follower of Jesus, I still use the Bible. I have no problem going to the Bible, reading the stories of a people, of Israelites, and reading it and trying to apply it to my life. But that does not mean, for me, the Bible is not infallible, because I know man has already touched it. I know there's various texts that are no longer included in the Bible, and we have the proof of that. But there's nothing to me like after being stressed out or me opening the Bible and like having that time,
that comfort,
right?
That
comfort. And I don't know if it's just something that's familiar because it's something that I grew up with. But I also see other sacred texts. So, the Quran, Buddhist readings, music is a big thing for me. I feel music can be something sacred. I feel the divine can speak to you through music. Definitely. And I've been like, that's my experience, and you're not gonna talk me out of it, So that's fine. So I don't see anything wrong with using it, but I have to be intentional with how I'm gonna use the Bible. Right. I have to be very intentional because there's a lot of ugly in it, and there's a lot of stuff that the church over its history has said, oh yeah, that's right, without actually looking at it like, no, actually it's not, like stuff that the church doesn't talk about. Church won't talk about rape when there's rape in the Bible. Right. That's a problem. We need to talk about that. Right. How? Because it shakes society. Right. So I think I'm with you. Similarly, like I will always turn to the Bible as a rock. Yeah. In that I think it's a powerful text. I'm hesitant to get into whether it's infallible or not infallible. It's just like the power of those words has been proven time and time again. And so I always turn to the Bible. I have my favorites. I love the wisdom text, Ecclesiastes, Proverbs, even Song of Songs. I love the parables of Jesus. Right. There are certain messages in there that are timeless and speak to me no matter what situation I'm in. Nice. However, on the flip side, where I'm not so aligned with turning to the Bible as a sacred text is using it as a direct one-to-one correlation as to what I should do ethically. Okay. I feel like you said, the Bible is the oral history of the Israelites turned into, reading. And I feel like when I was younger, I could not understand how some of the things that were supposed to be like the people that were supposed to be the good guys in the Bible were the good guys. Right. Like, for example, so Jacob and Esau, right? Yeah. So Jacob stole Esau's inheritance. And I just could not get it in my head. Like, how is he supposed to be the good guy? Like, morally, ethically. Yeah. Come to find out, these are trickster stories. Yeah. In a society where you're oppressed and you don't have access to resources, you can do the things that you need to do to get ahead and have it not be, a morally bad thing. Right. And so those were like encouraging stories to the Israelites. And so understanding like the change in dynamic for me, I think I'm able to take what I can from the Bible and leave the more violent parts, the parts that just I don't think speak to me, maybe as a woman, as whatever. I can leave those parts as well. Gotcha. Okay. So boom, we have how we approach sacred texts, where we see the power of the biblical canon, but we're not tied to it. Right. Where do you think people are going, young people, or where are you going when you're looking for inspiration, hope, comfort in difficult times? Like, I think when we all gather on a Sunday or whatever our day of worship is, and a person of ministry is able to look at you and say, it will be okay. Look at these texts, Right.
here's your hope, your peace. It's hard to find that. Like young people, especially, turn into social media so much, can be isolated.
Oh yeah.
And so when we are going through issues, where once it was mandated to go to the church and that was your place, now it's like where are our places? Yeah.
Twitter, like the prophetic voices on Twitter. I don't care what nobody says. Like there's so many prophetic voices on Twitter.
Okay.
And I think for the younger generation, the news you will hear about it first on Twitter before it hits anywhere else. That's how that's the power that Twitter holds.
So this is like in terms of like where young people were once going to church and they would go to church and get like some type of ethical accountability.
Yeah.
Like you should that kind of voice. You're saying Twitter.
Yeah, I think definitely Twitter. There's a couple of people that I think we both know and follow. At Ebony Janice, she does like mini sermons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's also Mia Shalimak and Yasmin Yonis. They're amazing. Like if you read their threads, how they respond to our political content is amazing. You know, they're able to use scripture and tell you like, no, this is what this is.
Right.
You know, and I think that's powerful. Because there's not many kids who are ready to do 4 or 5 hour services at church.
Right.
We're not in that time anymore. We've been trained to not have that attention span.
Right.
You know, we have videos that are 60 seconds and they're supposed to grab your attention because if they don't, you're not getting views.
Right.
You know, we are literally trained that way. There are kids 3 years old who get an iPad. You're trained to have a short attention span.
Right. And so it's service for the
the
next
same-
3 hours.
Exactly. So the church got to be able to do that. You know, the church got to be able to catch up and move with it in order to continue to make an impact and help people.
So when you said looking to Twitter for the prophetic word, I agree with you so much. I think one of the most interesting things is like, I think as people that speak Christianese or Christians or people of faith, we look at prophecy as like telling the future or even just morally calling someone out.
Yeah.
But biblically, prophecy is more than that.
Absolutely.
It's holding the society that you live in contrast to God's law and divine law, and being willing to call out in what ways we fall short, in what ways, and if we continue to fall short, how will the world look?
Right.
You know, it's not necessarily like a one-to-one, like, oh, I'm telling the future. And so I definitely think Twitter is a place where like people are having their voices heard and really saying, if we continue down this path with climate change, if we continue down this path with, you know, xenophobia and with immigrants, if we continue down this path with homophobia and transphobia, like what is going to happen to our society? And there are so many Christians, so many Muslims, so many spiritual and faith-based people on Twitter. Like I would say that's
Absolutely, I agree with that. If we see anything about climate change, Twitter was talking about that years ago. And was talking that we would be in this exact same state that we're in right now, scrambling, if we didn't move to it then. So here we are. So yeah. So where do you think then people go for hope, faith, and comfort?
I would say, I think that this is a positive thing. I think that as a community, as a Black community, you know, we are at CBCF, and so I do want to uplift, as a Black community, we have been raising mental health, and that is such a positive thing. And I think that a lot of times in faith communities, it can be looked at as either you're taking care of your mental health or you're dealing with your spiritual life, and not as the two are married. And I think that now, as young people turn to their therapists to like clear their mind and help to, you know, make sure that they're okay and sane and well, I just wanted to speak that there's room to do both. If you're a person of faith and you've ever been hesitant to seek mental health, you can find someone in your modality. You can find someone that is faith-based. You can find someone that deals with spirituality as a modality.
Yeah,
so this, I think, therapy is one place, definitely.
Yeah, I think there's that quote, right? You can have Jesus and a therapist.
Right.
Right. You can have the divine and the therapist is okay.
Right.
You know, and furthermore with that, I agree. Like YouTube videos, you know, of meditation.
Yeah.
You love that.
You know, I'm a YouTube girl.
Yeah, I like them for like the meditation videos that have that nice soothing music, and so I think that's definitely a place where when you're feeling anxious, it's something quick because it's accessible at almost anywhere that you can just throw a quick video on and just like relax yourself. There's also so many apps for meditation and for monitoring your breathing in anxious situations that are super helpful nowadays. So.
No, that's true. I think that with technology, with the YouTubes, the Instagrams, the Twitters, I think it's allowing us to turn to other places for the faith, the whole, those type of things, but also something that people get in church that is hard to get out in society is a recognition of the unknown. That there's the physical realm and that there's the spiritual realm. And I think via technology that there's so many outlets for that as more and more young people start to explore indigenous and African-based religions as well. Instagram has been like a major resource for me in terms of that. Like there's the Hood Witch on IG. There's an Instagram and podcast called the Awakened Life podcast that has been really helpful to like ground me spiritually and know that I'm not alone. Like I've chosen to step away from organized religion a little bit, but there's still a lot of people out there who are seeking similarly.
I think that.
Okay. So as we kind of like move towards the end of our time, I guess I have like a personal question for you. I've heard the term that like we're in a post-church or post-Christian era. Now, as a woman who just spent thousands on thousands and thousands of dollars at seminary to get your master's in divinity, right, who is a visiting preacher to many churches, what do you feel about that? Do you think you'll ever go back to the church? And do you think we're in a post-church era, or like what do you think?
So do I think I'll ever like go back like find a church home?
Yeah, like
every Sunday being there.
Yeah.
If I'm being completely honest, when you first asked me this, I think for me the only time I see myself going back anywhere like to a church would be if I were to set up my own. And it would be because I would want to run it like a community center, because my community needs resources. My community needs physical things to live for life.
Right, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You must have food. Yeah, you must have shelter.
Yeah, the church to be a place, as the early church was, where if you were in trouble, you could go there and receive help. And many churches still run that way.
Because that's not to take away from churches that are doing things, that
run that way, that run as a community. And perhaps that is why there is a part of us that's still tied to it, because I remember the churches that were run like a community center, that had the community in mind. But do I think we're in a post-church? I think we might be a little time off from that. I think that the church is moving in a direction where it is more inclusive, but this is where the church continues to run into issues, is that the church doesn't understand what inclusive actually means.
Okay.
And so we want to put up gay and trans banners and say, yeah, we welcome all, but your theology doesn't speak that.
Right.
Your rhetoric doesn't speak that. The way you welcome me doesn't speak that. Right. So I think the church is in right now a space where they are taking a hard look at themselves of like, well, what do we mean by inclusive? What does that really mean? What does radical inclusivity actually mean? Do we really accept all? Are we showing that in our staff? Are we showing that
in how we pay people? Are women all of the youth and kids pastors? Like, is there gender equity? Like,
Absolutely.
How are you living out your faith?
Exactly. Like, that's a major part of it, and I think the church is dwindling, but the church can be at a place where it can work with this generation. But I think it needs to look at itself first before it does that, because this generation ain't playing.
Listen, so I'm a millennial, but Gen Z
is not playing. They're not here for
have a short attention span.
They are not here for it.
They be like, what are you doing? And if it's not for me, then they're on to the next.
That's it. Yeah.
I think so. For me, would I go back to the church? I think some people do well with structure. I think that some people, like for all of the restrictiveness that one may feel being within a church or a religious, organized religion, the structure can be good. Like, for example, My husband would go to church every single week, like when we were dating.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was because that he's in the audience looking at me, I'm I don't think it was because he necessarily was like a fanatic for church, but
Right.
it helped to orient him on Sundays to
Yeah.
say, this is a new week, let me start my week on a positive note, giving thanks to God, in God's presence with other like-minded people. So when I have kids, I
Yeah.
might get back,
Yeah.
like, to give them that structure that I was raised with.
Yeah.
I think I will work hard to find a church that affirms my identity, my political beliefs, where I'm at in my life. What I think the church, so I don't think we're in a post-church era. I think we could be if the church doesn't pay close attention right
Absolutely.
now.
And like this.
Right, I
Like
think
that.
we're at a pivotal moment where it's like, we need more than praise and worship leaders who wear jeans and sing
Thank you.
rock songs.
Exactly.
Like, people
And
are
who know the
really,
slang.
right, people are really confused,
Yeah.
like, of how to deal with everything that's happening in the world politically, with how to deal with all these shootings, how to deal with, all of the trans women who were killed this year, how to live with our neighbors. Like, people are confused.
How do we actually practice to love your neighbor?
Right.
How do you actually practice that?
And so if the church can step up
Yeah.
and use the infrastructure that it has, and make the services shorter.
That'd be great.
And make the services shorter. I think that there's ripe opportunity for us to not be in a post-church America.
I dig it.
Yes. Okay. So we have another segment hosted by yours truly, Yaya, called The Moon Reading. And so you're listening to The Moon Reading. We are recording Friday, September 13th, the day before September 14th, full moon in Pisces. In the same way that the movements of the celestial bodies affect our seasons and perceptions of time and change, so do they affect our human mind, bodies, and emotions. During this full moon, be passive and sensitive to your possible insecurities. Wait them out. Watch them without judgment, to understand them and better master them. Also, keep on the radar September 23rd's autumn equinox. Be in tune with the season of change as we welcome the darkest part of ourselves. If you're angry, feel that. If you're feeling sad, cry. Now's the time to move with intent. Do not be afraid of the dark.
To keep the conversation going, tell us what you think by following us on Instagram or Twitter at Real Talk on Godtalk.
I don't believe in God. I know God.
I love me some Jesus.
You're doing too much.
That's crazy. That's on the next episode.
It's the moon reading.
I rock with you, Yaya.
It's all love.
They better listen to this advice. We good.
You crazy girl.
This is what this show is about, all right? We
Put
keep
the
it real.
real and real talk. The God in God talk.
And that's a wrap.